Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I am Andrew Sumner, and this is Chip Zdarsky, right here, right now. Right,
Ah,
in a very rustic setting as well, mate.
it is true. Yeah, I'm living my ultimate Canadian life.
It's beautiful to see. The amount of timber on show was more than I expected before we actually set this call up, mate.
I know. I'm just getting used to it myself.
Supremely authentic, and we're here to talk about your great book, Stillwater, specifically Stillwater, The Escape,
Hmm.
the one shot that you've got coming out in March. So there's also the second of your Stillwater collected editions. But let's talk about the one shot first.
Yeah.
What can we expect from that, mate?
I mean, we had an opportunity to because we're dealing with a whole town where the time has stopped. Um, there are so many stories that can be told, kind of smaller personal stories that in the main series we don't really have a lot of time for because there's so much kind of action happening. So we had the idea to do this anthology where we'd bring in other creators to kind of tell stories set in the town, and yeah, they're fantastic. Like everyone really dug in and kind of created these like really awesome little narratives. Um, yeah, we've got established creators, some up and coming creators. Jason Liu, my partner on my Comixology Dark Horse books. He's written, drawn, colored. He's the triple threat. He's done a short story for this. A friend of mine, Andrew Wheeler, has done a story with this with Soo Lee, who is also doing stuff with us on Newburn. They're fantastic. Ethan Young is writing and drawing a beautiful story, and yeah, and Ramón, the series artist, and myself are doing kind of the framing story for all of these, in which we kind of tease at the end kind of what's coming in volume 3, the final big volume of Stillwater.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's essential for the people who are reading the story, but also it's just really nice little vignettes of life in the town.
How specific were you about your brief for the escape, or was there a brief, and was it a case of go ahead and do whatever you like, or I need you to operate within these parameters? How did you handle
Oh,
that?
it's funny because like we basically said, kind of do what you want. Just we let them know where in our story it was taking place, so they could kind of play around with that. But then all the pitches came in, and they were all about people trying to escape the town, as almost like they were talking to each other, but didn't realize it. So it was like, oh, okay, all right. So now we actually have kind of a theme for all the stories, and so the title Stillwater the Escape came after the pitches came in, which is fun, and then it helped Ramón and myself kind of come up with a like I said, a proper framework for it, which is kind of like tales around the campfire about people who have attempted to leave the town before. So yeah, it was very organic. It started off really open, and then by virtue of the stories that were coming in, it became narrow, which is interesting.
That's a really interesting piece of creative synchronicity, isn't it? I mean, that
Yeah.
that happening in a way like that. Do you ever get the sense, if you're in the middle of, say, you get those outlines, don't you get the sense that your creation is somehow taking on a life of its own, and you're sitting in this like whirlwind of creative storytelling, mega plotting that you're not really a part of, that it's self-sustaining?
Well, it's funny because like working for Marvel for so many years, you get hints of that once in a while because the stuff you make in your little corner kind of gets reflected elsewhere. You'll pick up a comic and you'll see like, oh, Elektra's Daredevil is over in Savage Avengers now. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of used to that with the kind of the Marvel machine, but it's a much stranger feeling when it's something you and your friend have created out of whole cloth. So now it's like, oh, like it feels like a town now. When it's just 2 or 3 people making a story, it's like, yeah, it's our own little thing. But when you add in like a whole bunch more creators, it's like, oh yeah, it takes a village to create stories of
Yeah.
a village, it turns out.
Yeah, that's well said. I guess it must be like if you're a TV show creator who's the showrunner. but then you bring in a writing staff around you to flesh out your vision. You part of the process, right, is you've got to be able to step back and let other people write it. So
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it's some of that. And to flip back, is volume 3 going to be a definitive end?
Um, it is for myself and Ramón, it's a definitive end, but it's also kind of open-ended enough. If Skybound wanted to keep doing stories around Stillwater, they could. The option is there for it, absolutely. Because that's the other thing with Skybound, which is we don't actually own it.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah. The way Skybound works is, you get kind of creative participation in profits and decision making, but if you're going to work with Skybound's going to own the thing you're doing. I don't know if there's any exceptions to that amongst any of their titles, but it all falls under Kirkman's empire.
Oh, I had not appreciated that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people just think by virtue of Walking Dead being a creator-owned book, that everything Skybound does is creator-owned, but it's not the case. Like, and then we went in kind of eyes open with that. Yeah. So after we leave, like, they could still keep doing stories. They would consult us, and I would be super happy to see that happen, actually.
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, I get that. So in a way, Kirkman's become his own kind of like Goodman figure, as well as being his own, like he's Stanley and he's Goodman rolled into one, and Jack Kirby, I guess. Do you know?
Kind of. I mean, like the nice thing about the company is it's they pay well. There's creator participation. Like, I think in our contract, like, they can't actually do things with it without our saying yes to it. But they own it, so they can actually shop it around and do all the multimedia things that they want to do without, having our signatures on the paperwork. So yeah, he's not quite Goodman.
No, maybe perhaps that was a bit cruel.
But like he pays page rates, and they promote the work, and you get the prestige of being a Skybound book for sure.
So a benevolent impresario rather than an evil capitalist swine.
Sure. There you go.
We got there in the end. That's good. And Stillwater Volume 2, right? The Volume 2 collection has just hit the store right now.
Yeah.
It's available from the links attached to this conversation, as is the pre-order for Stillwater TheEscape. So, what can you tell me before we part about Volume 2 of Stillwater the collection?
Almost nothing, for a couple of reasons. One, so many big things happen that I don't want to spoil anything. And two, I have no recollection where Volume 1 ends and Volume 2 begins and Volume 2 ends and Volume 3 begins, because I just keep putting out the issues, and because I'm out in the woods, I'm not getting the comps. So I haven't seen the collections. All I can say is things blow up, secrets are revealed, alliances are formed, which just sounds like almost any other story, really.
But in a glorious way.
But it's cool. And it looks great. Yeah.
And on that note, what's it like working with Ramón K Pérez and Mike Spicer?
I mean, I've never worked with such a perfect clockwork team, because it's a hard book to keep visually interesting, because a lot of it's small town and conversations and just kind of a feeling of dread. And Ramón and Mike work so well in concert together to create that feeling. And they're fast, and Ramón is also an Eisner winner for his work on the Jim Henson book Tales of Sand. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, it's kind of the easiest gig in the world. Like, I send in a script and it comes back and it's beautiful, no notes. Yeah. Like, I can't remember the last time I said, "Oh, could you change this or do this?" It's just like, "Oh no, that's perfect. It's better than what I had in my head." It's amazing.
Yeah. No finer testament, mate. And I guess my closing point would be, you've definitely got the career that if I had a shred of creative ability, which I do not, I would just the way you're spinning those plates, it seems to me, is just a very satisfying space to be, because you get to do your Marvel work, you get to do your DC work. You know, you get to play around with Stillwater. You've got your comicsology books, and you've got Newburn, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
You know, your book with Jacob Phillips, which is just an amazing piece of contemporary noir. I mean,
Oh,
it
thanks.
must be great to be able to jump around between those.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before in previous interviews with you, just the idea that like nobody likes to consume one type of story.
Yeah,
Like no one's just like, well, I only watch horror movies and I only read horror novels. But so many careers of writers are all about like, oh, I'm John Grisham, I do legal thrillers. Oh, I'm
yeah,
Stephen King, I do horror. I'm Danielle Steele, I do romance. Like, and that's the way you build a career. So I often like to say that I'm bad at career building, but I have a lot of fun because I get to kind of do all the various genres, even if I can't bring readers from one to the next.
yeah. Well said, mate. And long may it continue. And once again, specifically, we've been talking about Stillwater: The Escape and Stillwater: The Collected Edition, Volume 2.
Yeah.
Both available right here, Chip, right on these links to the conversation.
And something happens in Stillwater Volume 2. I just don't know.
Brilliant. See, something happens. Check this book out. Mate, it's always great to see you. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah. Same again, Andrew.
Take care, man. All the best. Bye bye.
All right. You too.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.